The minute I stepped outside the art gallery, the sky broke open. Rain sluiced down the slick steps, dissolving the city's burnt orange glow into a blur. My shoes squelched as I walked along Calabar Causeway, water pooling around my ankles. In my arms, the folder holding my photographs felt heavier with each stride, the edges already curling from the damp. The memory of what happened inside still pulsed, raw and electric in my chest. You have an eye, but this isn't Paris. Mumbai isn't interested in slums and shadows, beta, try weddings. The gallery owner's tone carried that special blend of amusement and parental disappointment. Around us, a few visitors leaned in, pretending to admire someone else's abstract triptychs while listening in. When I'd collected my work, the hush of the space turned from curious to cruel. I left before anyone could meet my gaze with pity. By the time I reached the main road, rickshaws spewed bursts of dirty spray, headlights splintered across the puddles. I ducked under an awning, breath-fogging, pressing my portfolio folder to my chest. My thoughts looped, shoulders rolling, eyes darting, the silent, amused faces. My younger brother's voice echoed from months earlier at home. Why can't you be normal, Arian? Even mom says first get a job, then play with your camera. I turned toward Marine Drive, drawn to the sea's dark roar. I walked slowly, toes numb in my socks. With the bundle of my failed dream clutched hard, deeper than cold, I felt scraped hollow. Under the sodium lights near Chowpatty, I tried to find solace in the familiar skyline, dots of yellow burning behind thousands of windows. The city was indifferent. A shivering dog nosed around my ankles, then darted away at my sigh. I watched it slip into the tangle of parked cars, longing for someplace to belong. I remembered believing at 17 that not belonging was a kind of freedom. Now, at 26, it felt like exile. My phone buzzed. A message from my cousin Neha: heard about the gallery, call me if you want to talk. It's okay, Arian, you tried. The emoji at the end was a one-eyed wink, like a salve and a smirk at once. I wanted to fling my portfolio into the harbour. Instead, I sat on a bench, held my work, and let the disappointment settle. It arrived not as anger but as grief, a gentle, persistent ache. Each photo inside the folder flashed in my mind: sun-streaked faces in Dharavi, a street vendor arranging mangoes with so much intention it looked like ceremony, children leaping through rain-misted alleys. I thought I saw things worth showing the world, worth celebrating. But tonight, all I had was the slow, careful clarity that these images meant something to me if to no one else. That would have to be enough for now. The rain eased. I wiped my glasses, squinting at neon reflections bleeding into the wet blacktop. I couldn't go home, not yet, to more faces, more jokes. Artist Saab going for Oscar now, ek photo Nicole, but make my nose look slim. Their laughter had always been affectionate, yet edged with a barbed disbelief. When I finally trudged back to my parents' apartment in Marlard, it was past midnight. Baba was watching the end of a cricket match, slippers off, news creeping in muted strips along the bottom of the TV. Ma sat at the table shelling peas, her hands moving fast. She barely glanced up. Why so late? At least dinner is on the stove. She paused her motions, eyes finding my portfolio. Showed them your work. Her voice was gentle but expectant. When I shook my head, her smile faded, replaced by the tiniest trace of relief. I went to my room, peeling off my wet clothes in the dark. I sat cross-legged on my bed, opened my folder, and scanned each photo in the street lamp's milky glow. These prints were all I had, proof that I'd tried, that I'd seen something worth loving in the crowded corners of Mumbai. I promised myself one last time that I wouldn't stop, but the night was long and the room felt smaller than ever. The next 3 years wound around me like a slow, choking vine. Photography remained a job and a secret, both. During the day, I worked at my uncle's printing press in Antari. Nights and weekends, I wandered the city with a battered Nikon and borrowed lenses, shooting and saving every paisa. I documented, observed, waited. People at home learned not to ask where I went. Sometimes Neha would message, "Did you get anything good today?" She believed, quietly, steadily, and that was enough to keep me going. My parents gradually withdrew their appeals, talking money at dinner until I learned to tune them out, hiding my growing collection of prints behind books and inside old shoeboxes. It was Instagram that saved me first. I started an anonymous account, posting carefully edited shots each week: faces, streets, monsoon storms, the sudden elegance of a Vada Pav seller's hands. A handful of followers grew to 1,000. Then, out of nowhere, my photo of a woman braiding her daughter's hair in the dawn light under the assumed shelter of a tarpaulin got featured by National Geographic's local team. My phone buzzed all night. Weeks later, a message came from an editor in Delhi. Aryan, your work makes the city breathe. Interested in documenting urban life for an upcoming magazine feature? At first I thought it was a scam. When I realized it was real, I called Neha, voice trembling. Say yes, she shrieked. For the next year, every spare moment went to the magazine. I learned what real risk meant, dodging suspicion from cops, bribing guards, eating whatever was cheapest on the menu, but I felt alive. Strangers opened their worlds to me, a brass band rehearsing on a rooftop in Lalborg, train commuters dozing upright from exhaustion, a new widow washing clothes by the mangroves. The magazine ran my photos on the cover. I stared at those issues for days, unable to believe my own name was printed below the images. I called Baba from Delhi after the magazine arrived. He sounded proud, pretending not to be. Everyone is talking, Aryan. Your cousin even put your photo on her WhatsApp. I never said you couldn't make it, nah. I laughed, but neither of us mentioned money. 8 months passed. One morning I got an email from a professor at NYU inviting me to apply for a short residency, expenses paid, camera stipend, more opportunity than I'd ever dreamed. I secured the visa, packed my only suit and flew shivering into a Manhattan winter. The shock of that world, the subway heat, the endless coffee, the angry, hurried faces, was intoxicating. I shot still more. Empty basketball courts in Harlem, an old tailor mending saris in Jackson Heights, a silent snowfall over asphalt. Each day I sent my best work to the professor, who guided me, sometimes stern, always fair. I won 2 awards by spring, my photos hung in classrooms and coffee shops. Professors used them in lectures. I met other artists, Japanese dancers, a French sculptor, a filmmaker who'd seen Mumbai only through my lens. We sat for hours drinking cheap wine, arguing over color and truth. When the residency ended, I stayed on, barely scraping by, teaching workshops and taking commissions for immigrant families. At night, I'd call home. Sometimes Martha would cry, missing me, but her pride rang clear even through the cracks in her voice. For years, I drifted. My work started earning, and with each published photo essay, another door opened: Seoul, Istanbul, Johannesburg. Strangely, as much as I craved these new cities, I woke each morning missing the noise, smells, and traffic of Mumbai. The ache of exile sharpened around the taste of oversteeped chai or the crackle of distant firecrackers. I dreamed of the monsoon. I returned home in late July after 7 years abroad. My gallery backer in London had arranged a Mumbai exhibition, my first. They printed glossy invitations. The emails arrived and the press churned out mentions. Mumbai's lensman goes global. Neha messaged, come home, idiot, Marth made your favorite aloo paratha. I landed in the dark, exhausted, camera bag wedged under my seat. Mumbai's air wrapped around me, damp and sultry, blotting out the sterile chill of Europe. I took a cab from the airport, staring out at the rekindled chaos. Familiar billboards, cycle-wallers balanced impossibly under crates of fruit, the half-buried skeletons of construction projects I'd left behind as dreams. Home hadn't changed. The cracked lift, the heavy tang of incense and frying oil on the 4th floor, Baba waiting at the grill with the key already in his hand. Inside, Neha hugged me so tight I nearly dropped my duffel. The living room was festooned with white fairy lights and banners printed at the family press. Welcome home, Aryan. Marsh pressed my cheeks between her hands, wobbling tears and laughter. You have become thin again. Abroad they don't feed you, nah. Baba hovered proudly beside her, fussing anyway. For a week I barely slept. Relatives dropped by with mithai and questions. Even those who'd once called my dream calamity now bragged to neighbors, listing every city where I'd exhibited. Yet I felt a hush inside, waiting for something I couldn't name. On the afternoon of the gallery opening, the monsoon returned, rolling over Mumbai in thick silver sheets. I sat at the dining table, staring at my name in print. Aryan Shukla, lens of the everyday. My hands shook as I buttoned my shirt. Neha painted a streak of black cudgel behind my ear. Nazar you to do, she said, laughing. For luck. Baba wore a suit he hadn't taken out since Neha's wedding. Mah fussed over her sari pleats. Neha's husband drove us through sheets of rain, past snarled traffic and shimmering streetlights. My nerves tightened with each kilometre, the old dread returning, sharper with memory. What if it failed again? What if it was a dream deferred, not one? The gallery faced the sea this time, floor-to-ceiling windows framing a grey, storm-soaked horizon. Inside, my work lined the walls, 36 photographs, each carefully hung under bright white lights. There were the old women mending nets by Versova, the rickshaw driver asleep in the midday warmth, a silent, flooded alleyway where a child's red balloon hovered just above the water. I saw them anew. I saw the years I'd spent chasing light and shadows. Guests began to arrive, press, artists, old colleagues. I saw my former boss from the printing press, blinking owlishly at a shot of Bandra boys swimming in muddy tide pools. A few college friends slipped in, whispering, nudging, shaking my hand with a strange new respect. But the part that mattered didn't walk in until almost halfway through: my neighbors, my extended family. My skeptical aunts Chach and Morsi in pearls and rain-soaked slippers, clutching their saris. My cousin Arvind, who years ago snapped, "When will you become serious?" They moved through the space in a careful tidal flow, pausing at each image. I watched them from beside the window, breath trapped in my chest. Chach stopped at the photo of a street musician playing a battered harmonium, sunlight catching on the sweat beading his brow. She peered closely, then looked over at me. "You took this, I know this man, he used to play near Sion Market, see how happy his eyes look." Morsi drifted to a portrait of a Dabawala, teeth missing, face shining with joy. She frowned, then nodded slowly. "They look real. Not like the usual photos, like you can hear the noise." She reached for Arvind's arm. "You remember Aryan's first camera, that cheap one he bought with Diwali savings?" Arvind colored, but then he said quietly, "This one's good. Makes Mumbai look important, like the people are the main show." His voice had lost that edge of mockery, replaced by something rawer. He looked at me, met my eyes, and for a moment everything else muted. The chatter, the clink of glasses, the distant drum of rain. I walked over. "I remember you making fun of my first camera," I said gently. He gave a sheepish laugh. "Everyone was just, well, we never thought." He shrugged, eyes fixed on the image. "It takes guts to look at all this and make art from it." Behind us, more of the family gathered, inspecting each print, pointing out streets or faces they knew. My young niece tugged at her father's hand. "Papa, look. It's our building." Her delight cut through the chatter, lighting my heart in a way no award ever had. In the center of the room, a screen blinked on, running a loop of my photo essays, set to music that rose and fell like the tide. A critic took the microphone, introducing me. "Aryan Shukla has taken Mumbai and given it back to us, frame by frame, in all its flawed beauty. He's shown us the invisible everyday, sorrow, joy, belonging." He called me forward. As I stepped into the light, my family surged near. I saw Baba, head high, eyes bright. Even my hard-edged Morsi dabbed her eyes. The applause broke over me in a way I hadn't imagined, full-throated, sincere, not for the photo but for the journey they'd now seen start to finish. I scanned the crowd. There near the end was the gallery owner from 7 years before, lips pressed into a thin line. Even she joined in the clapping, nodding once, formal, defeated. I took the mic, hands almost steady now. "When I first tried to show my work in Mumbai, I failed. I thought I'd lost the city. But what I learned, wandering everywhere I could, is that sometimes you have to leave home to see it clearly, so you can find your way back. I owe everything to these streets, these people, and yes, this family." Wet shapes shimmered on the windowpanes. Outside, children jumped into puddles. The city was alive, indifferent and forgiving. The gallery crowd began to mill forward, eager for autographs, questions, stories. I caught Baba's eye. He held out his hand, proud and trembling. When he spoke, above the clamor, his voice wavered. "You showed them, Aryan. You showed all of us." That night, as the rain continued to fall, I walked home with my parents and Neha, portfolio case folded under my arm. The streetlights danced across the puddles. Laughter and chatter spilled from taxis. My family bracketed me on either side, safe from the weather at last. For the first time in years, as Mumbai's thunder rolled past us, I felt something ease inside, like breath after grief. Whatever came next, I would belong, not just because I had made it, but because I had come back, story in hand, with my city behind me.